people usually see the whole East Asian archipelago as the whole nation of Japan. However, Japan is anything but one nation. It's made up of many nations that aren't fully represented.
One of those nations is Okinawa. Okinawa is the southernmost prefecture of the Japanese archipelagos that has served as one of the most important trading islands of Asia.
Since the 1400s, Okinawa was linked through a network of trade in Southeast Asia when it was part of the Ryukyu Kingdom. The Ryukyu Kingdom was also a tributary of the Chinese emperor.
It remained under Chinese rule until 1879, when it was officially annexed into Japan. In 1945, around the end of World War II, Okinawa was under U.S. military rule.
When Japan finally got Okinawa back, the mainlanders did not accept the Okinawans as a minority group or one of their own, but instead economically neglected them by paying them less for the same jobs and frowning upon their very different traditional culture.
The Okinawans followed an old ruling system that fell behind in modernization. Their economy depended on homegrown or handmade things, whereas the mainlanders created factory-produced materials and textile mills.
An Okinawa boom in 2003 helped it undergo neo-localization, which attracted tourists and fascinated the mainland by its popularity, and brought awareness of the stateless nation to a worldwide status.
The Battle of Okinawa was one of the most important and bloodiest battles of World War II. Both the Japanese and American sides suffered heavy losses. However, Okinawans still blame the Japanese for losing their island to the U.S.
The United States took up a lot of the Okinawan island and used it for military bases. The Okinawans felt like the invaders were taking away whatever territory they had.
Over time, resentment grew and grew towards the U.S. and mainland Japan. One could compare the Okinawan nation to a child's toy being passed back and forth between two children.
The military bases provide 15% of Okinawan employment and add $1.9 billion to the economy. The Tokyo government also pays a $100 million compensation fee for the American bases being on their property. However, the bases take up 74% of the island, adding noise pollution, helicopter accidents, toxic elements, and traffic congestion to the heated conflict.
So this was the controversy. Once the governor betrayed the people of Okinawa, many of us decided it was time to act. The Okinawan population has come out against the base relocation. They want it entirely off of Okinawa. They've got far too many bases already. More than half of U.S. troops in Japan are located at Okinawa.
Why there? Why is there such a highly concentrated military presence on this island?
Because it's strategically located. It's located close to China. It's located close to Taiwan. It's a base that the United States has already been using in every U.S. involvement in the Pacific. Since World War II, we've sent troops from Okinawa. The negative effect is pervasive. I mean, it's occupation. It's always been occupation. People there have really been exploited.
There was a case of U.S. soldiers raping a 12-year-old girl as well, and turned 70 to 90% of the Okinawans against the idea of the bases because of their threatened homeland.
The positives for the Japanese having Okinawa as part of their state includes keeping military bases in their possession, having more property and land, making Okinawans work for less pay, and obtaining the Naha Free Trade Zone in bonded areas.
Free trade zones and bonded areas are trade zones with no customs authorities and designated areas for importing goods exempt from taxes and tariffs. These zones found in Okinawa are the only ones found in Japan.
If a new nation-state were to be created, Okinawans would run their own government and no longer face cultural oppression. The mainlanders would also no longer have to face resentful minorities.
However, the new Okinawan government would be weak and on their own, with no assistance for the economy or employment. Left alone, the weak nation-state could be overruled by another country that is even more oppressive than Japan.
Japanese losses as well would include the lack of cheap labor and no Naha free trade zones and bonded areas to aid in their economy growth.
In order to come up with a solution, one must understand the frustration on both sides of the conflict. The Japanese government is a constitutional monarchy, where the emperor has a small role, but the prime minister has more impact on the people themselves.
In order for the Okinawans to feel like they belong, they must be granted the chance to elect representatives from Okinawa to represent them in the House of Representatives and the House of Councilors.
The Japanese must as well be kept in mind, as the free trade zones and bonded areas are important to their profitable trade and commerce. They must share the power and usage of the ports with the Okinawans equally.
As for the Americans, the military bases should reduce to about 15 so that some of the land is given back to the Okinawans, but the U.S. still holds a strategically located point in the Pacific Hemisphere. They should also follow measures that reduce toxic waste and pollution onto the native Okinawan island.
Possible consequences could result, such as disagreements over lawmaking in the Houses of Representatives, the U.S. having less land for bases and military authority, and disagreements over the Naha free trade zones and bonded areas. However, the Japanese government must take this risk if they want to be one step closer to finding peace in the conflict that's been going on for centuries.